4 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which came totally out of the blue for me. I had surgery, and I was lucky because I was caught early on, but I also had chemotherapy and radiation, so it knocked me out for a good 6 months.
I was an addict, and I am 3 years clean.
The hardship that I experienced was when my father passed away about 10 years ago. He had been diagnosed a year or two earlier with lung cancer, and they gave him less than a year to live.
I am a suicide attempt survivor. I was convinced my life was not supposed to happen.
The methods I used to cope were gathering people who were important to me around me and making sure that various communities knew that I was hurting and were available to help.
Humor was really important, being able to laugh about things that were just ridiculous, waking up and, looking at your nails and they were black, or not being able to eat the way you normally eat.
So for example, we had a memorial service for him on the East Coast where he lived and where all of our extended family was, where we talked about his life and positive memories of him.
Having a creative outlet is huge. I'm a writer, and writing is the only thing that helps me make sense of things.
Some of the setbacks when trying to get over a loss like this include wanting to reach out to the person you've lost and realizing you can't. So there were a lot of times when I wanted to call my dad and tell him about something that happened to me, and he wasn't available for that, obviously, or it would be a very long distance call to make.
The feeling you get when you're just underwater for so long and you're just waiting to come up for air, and addiction is just never being able to reach the top. Does that make sense?
I was extremely tired from chemotherapy, and I think a pivotal moment for me was walking out our front door and walking 2 houses up and stopping and thinking to myself, if I could get someone to come pick me up in a car and drive me back 2 houses, I would do that right now. I was so exhausted. And I promised myself I'd remember that so that when things, later on in life felt stressful, I'd go back to that and say, no, that was stressful. This is just stuff.
I would run a race every year in San Francisco, Bay to Breakers, and every year for 20 years I would call him after I finished the race. And then after he died, the next race that I ran, I got in the car and went to call him and realized I couldn't.
Addiction runs in my family, and so because of that growing up, there was a lot of those issues to deal with, being around violence, unhealthy relationships, unhealthy environment.
One of the things that made it easier after that time was having a lot of people around me who remembered all of the good things about him, expressing their love and appreciation and support.
Also, letting people help was a huge thing. I mean, that's really hard for me. I tend to be the one that helps other people. So letting others help me was huge.
We had people offer to make meals for our family so we didn't have to cook in the weeks after he passed away. I went through his belongings when I had to empty out his house, and seeing a lot of old pictures and seeing his college diploma, seeing all kinds of things from my own youth that reflected who he was as a person, and my memories of him definitely made that easier.
One of the things that was amazing is people who I didn't even know really well stepping up. So I would say my work community, synagogue community, and then friends all, pitched in, and there were people that I hadn't been as close with who I've become much closer with ever since then. I had people that took me to appointments, 2 people who are good friends of mine come and help me pick out a wig.
I'm not unaware of the harm that I cause people. I'm just learning to forgive myself.
Having members of the synagogue present for different prayer ceremonies was helpful. Having friends and family be there, making phone calls, checking in on me, having my immediate family around just to give me hugs.
Talking to other survivors is what actually saved my life. Talking to other rape survivors, talking to other people who have tried to kill themselves. Because we think that we're in this tiny little bubble and nobody sees us because that's how we feel, because we're empty. I'm a leftover, nobody knows I exist. But in reality, we all are feeling the same thing.
I think I appreciate things in a different way. I'm able to have the perspective of when you have no energy and you can't do anything, and then you look forward 2 years and and I'm at work and I'm getting stressed about something, to be able to go back to that time and think that's big. This other stuff is little.
I'm not a terrible person.
Optimistic about the future. And while my father passed away at the young age of 65, and I would have loved to have him around for many, many more years, that's the nature of things. We all die, and I'm happy that I'm still here to continue his memory, keep our generations going from one generation to the next.
I needed to know that I had the power to save myself, that I wasn't powerless, that I had the control.
When something like this happens, we all are a bit naive about things will never happen to me. And then when it does, you're never quite that naive again, but in a way, it's okay because you're kind of more grateful for what you have. And I think that's how I feel.